comes together. Okay, so, I'm gonna be like, okay, so I got this really weird thing, and I hope y'all don't mind, like, whenever I go into prisons or jails, I like to take off my shoes and get comfortable. Will anybody be offended? My feet don't stink, I promise. Not today, anyway. There has been that era of my life. Okay, so, I'm just gonna take a moment, if you don't mind, and breathe. All right. Hi, I'm excited to be here. You guys are so awesome in Hannibal. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this town. So I am Christine, and we have a lot in common. So I'm going to tell you a little about my journey, and I'm going to tell you a little bit what led me to where God intervened into my life. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the value that he sees in all of us, because I'm not an exception to the rule. He has a plan for each and every one of us. It's just, are we letting him lead our lives, right? So, I'm from Oklahoma, so if you didn't notice, I have a little twang. Little. It's just little. And I grew up in a lot of dysfunction. It's no excuse for a whole lot of things that happened on my journey. But there were some things I wasn't responsible for. My mother had mental illness. She was pregnant with me in an insane asylum going through electric shock therapy for schizophrenia. Because that's how they did it back in the 60s. If that gives you any idea how old I am. We've come a long ways. And I was in and out of foster care, removed from family. We did family reunification. My mom would get some therapy, and they'd put me back in the home. And then, she would get off her medication and just get in her own little place. And when I was 3 years old, I was removed from my mom's home because she had fractured my skull. She had fractured my collarbone and broke my arm in 2 places. Right? She couldn't help it. It took me a long time to understand that. I do not know who my father is, nor did my mom. And so there were a lot of men in and out of our lives. I was reunified with my mom. I have 3 older siblings, 2 older brothers, and an older sister that ended up being adopted out later on. And God has recently reunified me with my older siblings, which is really cool. It's really cool. So being the youngest of the siblings, typically DFS, they're always reunifying, usually the youngest child. And so at 5, my mom, again, off her medication and having some struggles. With schizophrenia, I guess there's paranoia and challenges that come in, and she thought I was bad and I was trying to harm her. And when I was 5 years old, my mom locked me in my bedroom. She doused the curtains with gasoline, and she set them on fire. Right? She couldn't help it. She was broken. As I stood in my bedroom screaming, we lived in Oklahoma City at the time, and there was this wino. Oh my goodness, Wild Irish Rose was his drink of choice, and he used to drink in our alley. And we'd always have empty booze bottles, right? This alcoholic heard my cries and saved my life. I tell people all the time, all alcoholics and drug addicts ain't bad, because one saved my life when I was 5 years old. Right? We're not all bad people. Sometimes we just get lost along the way. Right? Yeah. Took me a long time to understand that too. We'll get to that. So I got into cutting. I was sexually abused. There was physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, just a whole bunch of ugliness, right? I got into self-harm, cutting. Cutting was how I dealt with so much of my pain. It was like my deep, dark secret, yet I longed for somebody to just notice and ask me, what happened to you? Why are you doing that? But nobody ever asked. Because as equally as I just wanted somebody to ask, I kept it a secret because I didn't want anybody to know. Right? And then I learned about drugs and alcohol. And I learned when I drank or when I took sleeping pills, I didn't cut. So for me, cutting was like a demon. But then drugs became my God. And for me, the drugs were a much better alternative than the cutting. Years and years later, learned about the cutting thing. It's something I went to therapy. It's like, just don't cut. Put a rubber band around your wrist and pop it. What? Take a magic marker and write words on your arms. Huh? These were therapies, right? To try to help me not cut. And this was years and years later, and I'm in all these things. But nobody ever explained to me, why do I do it in the first place? Because I'm a practical kind of girl. I need to know. And years later, when I was, after I had been out of college and I was actually lecturing at the New York School of Medicine on trauma and the brain, I sat through a lecture about self-harm. And this is what the lady said. And I try to tell addicts all the time this because it just makes so much sense. And if anybody's like me, and I know a lot of addicts are, it helps. You know what she said? I learned in that lecture that when we cut, when we do self-harm, whether it's burning, whether it's cutting, I've run into people that do self-harm, that hit themselves and cause bruising, and there's just all these different variables of self-harm. And what I learned is when we do that, we're kicking in the brain stem. And when we kick in the brain stem, it's responsible for physical sensation. So what happens is we take our brain that's stuck in emotion and mess, and we're kicking it into physical sensation. So we're actually giving our brain an escape from the emotional mess that we're stuck in. Makes sense when you hear it like that. And so for any of y'all that didn't know, and any of you that struggle with that or have a history, I know for me, it took me years and years of therapy to actually sit through a workshop that I'm actually teaching at the same conference on a different subject and actually learn, well, how come my therapist never gave me something practical like that to chew on? Right? To help me understand, why do I do it? You're telling me all these things to do instead, but nobody ever gave me a why do we do it in the first place. Right? Anyway, so I try to share that with people. It's like, oh, that makes sense. It's a light bulb moment for me, may or may not be for you, and that's okay. So I'm into drugs. So now I'm 15. I'm in and out of foster care. And what would happen is I would get picked up by juvenile. I would get sent to detention, and then I would get sent back home. My mom would get a little counseling, a little therapy, and be the same thing. So at 15, I'm on my own. I was like, I don't care what I have to do. I will not go back home. So now I'm in the big city, right? I find this abandoned house, and this is where I stay. I have 5 days, no food or water, in this abandoned house in the big city. And a guy, I take off walking knowing I got to get a job, and a guy befriends me. And later I find myself in the mess of stripping. Right? Dancing. He's like, oh, you're beautiful. So I want to tell you something. At 15 years old and you've never been told you're beautiful, and you've been through a whole lot of ugliness, everybody wants to be told they're valuable or they're special or they're beautiful. So I got this old guy with gray hair smoking a pipe telling me I'm beautiful. Right? You have such a lovely smile. My mother told me I was retarded and stupid. Right? I was illiterate. I had been to 23 different schools by the time I was in the 7th grade. I couldn't read or write. I knew how to write my name. That's it. And this guy's telling me I'm beautiful. And I have a pretty smile. Right? And so this guy, after I've been staying in this abandoned building, he went one step further, and he's like, you know what, you are so beautiful. I want to take pictures of you because I want to capture this moment. You're so beautiful. Now, this man didn't touch me. He didn't have sex with me. None of those things. But what he did do is take pictures of me and tell me I was beautiful. And what he did do was leave $40 on the tray when I went and he washed my clothes, and I went in the bathroom to put them back on, and I came out, and And he fed me. He brought me food. I didn't even know they delivered pizza. Okay, so this guy knocks on the door, and he's got pizza, right? Knocking on the door. They deliver pizza. Now, we're in this hotel room, and it's all clean and pretty, and there's all these bright colors, and it's like, oh, my goodness, and I'm taking a hot shower, and I'm putting on clean clothes, and it's amazing. Okay, I was at a La Quinta Inn. I was not at the Ritz-Carlton. Let's be clear. I grew up in extreme poverty, right? And so I go in the bathroom to put on the clothes that he washed for me, and I come out, and he's gone. There's $40 on the counter. And what just happened? I just hadn't eaten in 5 days. I just got my clothes washed. I just survived, right? My needs were just provided for me. We call that survival sex. But I didn't have sex. He just took pictures of me and told me I was beautiful. There was something in my heart I'd never heard, right? Jesus tells me I'm beautiful every day. I don't need that from a man, right? And he thinks we're all amazing because he created us all, and he knew each one of our hairs on our head in our mother's womb, right? He thinks we're all special. I didn't know that. So now, I eventually end up friended by a guy who offers me a place to stay. He buys me my first brand new pair of shoes. I'd never had a brand new pair of shoes. I always wore clothes that didn't fit from the thrift store, right? Sometimes only having one pair of pants, so my mom would send me to school. I'd be the same pair of pants, same shirt, 3 or 4 days in a row, right? I just got my first brand new pair of shoes. So he introduced me into dancing. I got into stripping, and I got into drugs. And in the VIP rooms of fancy clubs on the circuit, people would pay for extra services because a 15-year-old teenage girl can be in high demand. Sometimes there were multiple men, and it would be determined if I would eat or sleep that night on my production of services. I ended up addicted somewhere in there. I don't know if the drugs became what I did because I knew what I was fixing to have to do, or if the drugs became what I did because what I had just done, because it gets real muddy. Not sure when that addiction switch clicked in, right? And then eventually it was just all I lived for. Eventually I was too much work and I was cut loose, and now I'm out on the streets with $1,000 crack cocaine habit, selling my body on Independence Avenue in Kansas City, Missouri, on the corner of Independence Avenue and Spruce. 17 years. 17 years. Somebody laughed. You must know that area. Does somebody know that area? A little bit. Gotcha. Through that journey, I went through a whole lot of stuff, right? I won't go into a whole lot of graphic detail there, but, I'll tell you what happened to me, besides my friends being murdered. Who looks for prostitutes? Who looks for a junkie? Right? Nobody. Right? Arrested over and over again, sometimes stealing food. There's Kentucky Fried Chicken over at Gladstone. I'd watch for people going in and out through the windows, right? I'd go in and walk through to use the bathroom, and I'd steal the food that people had left on their trays because they didn't put their tray in the trash, right? And put it in my pocket and go back out and eat. Because my disease didn't care if I ate. My disease didn't care if I slept. My disease didn't care if I bathed, because there were times guys would pick me up and pay me to get out of their car because I was addicted. I didn't care. My disease didn't care. Right? It's okay if we're all honest. We all have those times, but I got no shame today because Jesus wiped that clean. Right? Man judged me and God redeemed me. Right? I still get shunned and judged today, and that's okay. Because the creator of all forgave me. Right? So I don't care what man thinks of me today. Because my Jesus thinks I'm special today. Right? Amen, right? Yeah. That's freedom. So, I ended up pregnant. I'll never forget. Got up to I was arrested. So, I've been arrested 103 times. I know, right? People are like, when I come in and they're like, oh, look at this sweet little blind girl. Aw, aw. I got 9 felony convictions, and I've been to prison 7 times, and I've been arrested 103. Maybe not that sweet little blind girl, right? Maybe not. Maybe, I'm thinking no. So I had gotten arrested, and I was at the city jail, and I had been up so many days. Y'all know what it's like when it's been so long since you ate, you're just trying to get your mouth to work with you, right? Right? Y'all know what I'm talking about? Or you fall asleep, and you're still kind of chewing your food, right? Yeah, y'all know what I'm saying, right? Been there, done that. And those of y'all that don't know about me and saw me the last couple of days, you may not have thought that kind of passed for me, right? I kind of look like a prissy girl. I like to eat today. Right? It's like, dang, this stuff's good. World's been holding out on me. There's more than bologna and mustard? And prison ramen. I'm just saying. Anyway, so I remember I had to have you. So there's a rule that your eyes have to be open when they take a mugshot. Your eyes have to be open. I couldn't do it. So they're like, hid my hand trying to get me to jerk my eyes open so they can take a picture with my eyes open. Right? So they got one officer is like kind of got one of my arms and kind of holding me up on the wall while the other one's like smacking my hand, getting my eyes open. So they could take my mud shot so they could book me in and put me in a cell so I could sleep. It's their own fault. They gave me the sandwich first. So now, here I am, and I pass out. They take me to the emergency room, and I find out I'm pregnant. I'll never forget. The guy in the ER room says, Ms. McDonald, you're pregnant. And I said, I can't be pregnant. He said, Miss McDonald, you're a known prostitute. Don't you know how these things happen? I said, well, exactly. I'm a prostitute. Therefore, I can't be pregnant. Right? I'm jacked up. I can't be pregnant. Do you know what my man will do when I tell him I'm pregnant? Right? That's going to mess with our paper. Are you kidding me? That's going to mess with my drugs. And so they ended up letting me go, and they arrested me a couple months later. And I'll never forget, the judge is like, look, Miss McDonald, we've got no charges, but I was 5 months pregnant. He said, that's a viable birth, and so we're actually holding your baby in custody. I was one of the first people in Missouri. They were going to charge me with child endangerment if my baby was dirty, but I was clean when I gave birth. I gave birth in shackles, and I sit there. The guard, the phone rang. She hands me the phone. It's the judge, and he says, well, Miss McDonald, we'll get the stool sample. Baby's clean. You're free to go. If not, I promise you we will make an example out of you and charge you to the fullest. And I'm like, gotcha, whatever, right? Whatever. Shackled to the bed, just gave birth, right? And so he calls me 3 days later. He said, congratulations, you have a baby girl, and she's clean. And she spent those 3 days with me in that hospital room. It was just me. I fell in love, 3 days. I'd been clean for a couple months in the county and gave birth. And I'm like, well, now what do I do? Miss McDonald, we're not social workers. What? What I hadn't learned is how to be a self-advocate. I didn't know how to ask for what I needed. And unfortunately, a lot of our systems are set up. You got to know what you're looking for. Look, I had a guy come look for a job. He's like, I need a job, but he didn't have a pair of shoes. Well, you actually need a pair of shoes before we can get you a job. And his was, I need a job so I can get a pair of shoes, right? I was a mess. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? We're not social workers. So the guard's like, you're free to go. I'll get you clothes. I'm like, you think they're going to fit? Not my problem, Mr. McDonald. We're not social workers. So I called the only person I had, which was a dope man. I'm like any good dope man. Hey, girl, where you been? Glad to see you. You been locked up? Oh, I bet you're looking good. Right? Y'all know what I'm saying. They do that, right? Yes. We're honest today, right? So I don't care how many college degrees I get. This is real stuff. So he brings me a change of clothes, and like any good drug dealer, right? He give me the hookup. And I got dressed, and I got high. Motivator, because he knows I'm a prostitute. I'm going to go out and make money. I looked at that baby, and I told her, you know what? I love you. I can't be your mama. Went back in the bathroom in that hospital room 3 days after I gave birth. I got high, and I went back, and I kissed that baby, and I told her, this is the best thing I could do for you. And I left her. I walked down that hall, Truman Medical Center, and I walked all the way back to the hood. 3.5 days later, after I gave birth, I'm standing on a corner. Right? That's jacked up, right? Right? That's real stuff. Right? Real stuff. I tried to go to treatment. This was funny. So I decided I'm going to go to treatment a little bit later, and so here I go. I got this lawyer that picks me up. So he's a closet-smoking white boy because crack was my drug of choice. So he would work as an attorney in his fancy little house and drove his little Volvo and would come to the hood and pick up a prostitute. So he would pick me up. He would always look for Ellie. He would pay people money. Hey, y'all tell me where Ellie is. So I'd get in a hotel for a couple days and get cleaned up, get high. I'm sure you guys can relate. And he says, you know, you're kind of pretty. You ever thought about getting clean? I'm like, wait a minute. So you got a job, you got a Volvo, you got a wife, you own a house, and you're going to tell the homeless hooker to get clean? Help me here. Help me. Right? He's like, no, for real. I'm like, yeah, I'm for real. Right? So he doesn't spend up all of his money, and he's like, no, really, there's this place. You can go and get treatment. They'll take you. Well, it was wintertime, and I've been gone for a few days. Well, I'll give it a try. I need a rest. Right? It's cold outside. Now I need a couple days sleep. So they feed you and you can sleep? I'm all in. So I go. Okay, so I get into treatment. I get my name on this list. So they take my blood pressure, right? They're checking you in, right? They ask you all these questions. He's like, oh, you don't drink alcohol? Oh, no. I don't drink. I have standards. I just smoke $1,000 a day worth of crack cocaine. My mom was a drunk. I'll never be a drunk. Right? Well, Miss McDonald, if you don't drink, we can't help you, huh? Gotta blow numbers. Because they got to get funded. I'm like, huh? What? Okay. So this is what I did. So this is how my day went. So I left. I was like, okay, I got to blow numbers. Okay. If I walk over here a couple blocks, I'll be in the hood. I'll catch a date. I'll make some money. I'll get dropped off at the liquor store. I'll never forget the guy's face at the liquor store. Okay, so he was kind of cute, right? He was an Italian guy. He was kind of cute. And so I'm like, hey, dude, look, I don't drink. And I'm trying to get into detox. And they told me I have to blow numbers. And I really don't like the taste of beer. Do you have any recommendations for me? Right? He obliged me. I'll never forget his face. He just like looked at me. He's like, you're like serious, aren't you? What? People come in here and say stuff like that to you on a daily? So he obliged me. He actually introduced me to some malt liquor. It was the worst stuff I'd ever had in my entire life. But I blew numbers and I got in treatment. So I get into treatment. Now, I've been homeless for years and years and years living in the park. Because, see, the corner was where I could catch a date. The park was where the dope man was. And the trees were where I could get high. The police never look in the trees. Right? So, now, here I am. Back, blowing numbers. I'm in treatment. They give me a sticky note. I have a bed date. 6 weeks out. I don't even know what year it is. I'm going to stick that sticky note on my tree? Really? Miss McDonald, you don't have insurance, you're indigent. You get the next indigent bed. I don't even know what year it is. Are you kidding me? I don't own a watch. Oh, and my appointment's at 9 a.m. And don't be later, they give your bed to the next person on the list, right? So I made a huge, needless to say, I don't know, y'all probably couldn't see this in me. I was a little dramatic. Right? Couldn't picture that, right? So the lady calls me in the office, and she's like, well, what seems to be the problem? So I tell her. So by the grace of God, they let me in treatment. She came back. She says, actually, somebody didn't show up, which would have probably been me 6 weeks later. And I got their bed date. So I'm 5 days now. I'm 5 days in treatment and 5 days, and they're talking. It's like Charlie, Charlie Brown, wah, 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 because they're telling me how your brain reacts to drugs and just all this stuff that, are you kidding me? I'm just trying to not, go and get high. And you want me to take in all of this? Right? Can anybody relate? Got nothing from treatment, right? But I'm 5 days in, and so what happened, I'm in this room. Okay, so let me tell you about my treatment group. So there were 4 girls. There were 4 of us. There was me. There was a mom. She had 7 kids, and she was addicted to prescription drugs. Xanax. Okay, look, guys. I'm a mom today. I'm love being a mom. She had 7 kids and was addicted to prescription Xanax. If I had 7 little kids, I might be addicted to prescription Xanax too. Just saying. You had a 17-year-old girl that was a cheerleader that got busted smoking pot, and her mommy and daddy made her go to treatment. And then you had this gal that was going to lose her retirement plan with her job because she had her little flask at the desk and got busted drinking on the job. And so her job sent her to treatment in order to keep her retirement. And then you had me. And I'm supposed to bond and process in these little small groups with these gals? Yeah, right, no. Because I would just what? Right? Oh, you got it so bad. Oh, you were homeless. You lived in extended stay suites and had to drive a rental car? Oh, right? I slept in an abandoned condominium and got bit by rats, right? I'm just saying, whoa, yeah, no. So what was happening as I was continuing to get clean was all of these things that back in when I used to cut, now that I wasn't getting high and now that I was clean a little bit, were all just coming up. So at the time, we were taking away the drugs, but nobody was dealing with the trauma. Nobody was dealing with the post-traumatic stress. Nobody was dealing with my anxiety disorder. Nobody was dealing with some of these other violent acts that I had endured that were now at the forefront of my life, right? And very raw. Because now I didn't have the drugs to keep it all at bay, right? And so I go into, I take a shower, and I come out of the shower, and I'll never forget looking in the mirror, because one of the things that I never did is I never looked in the mirror. I couldn't handle that shame. I would look down at a hotel room, and I would go to the thrift store and grab me a change of clothes and go outside behind the dumpster and take off my clothes and toss them in the canister and put on my clean clothes I just got at the thrift store and back on the block. Any of y'all ever done that? What? Nobody? It's okay. We're changing clothes in the floorboard of a car. Just saying, right? And so, but I never would look myself in the eyes, right? Just look at the mirror enough to tell if my clothes matched, if I look good, right? At 88 pounds, right? Walking dead, thinking I look good, right? Right? Just saying, walking dead, thinking I look good, and I got out of the shower, and I'm about 11 days into this between detox and the little bit of treatment that I had, and I just looked at myself, and I seen all this shame, I seen all this disgust, and I just had so much hurt. And so I went back into my room, and I found a razor, and I cut it up, and I started cutting, and I was like, nah, man, I'd rather be called a dope man. That sent me back out for about another 10 years, right? Because for me, getting high was a better option than cutting, right? So eventually, I used to go to the soup kitchen. So my mom was an atheist, so I never had much God. So I used to go to the soup kitchen. And in order to eat there, they'd preach. You're going to burn in hell for all your evil and wicked ways. Turn from your sin, right? Hellfire and brimstone, all that great stuff, right? Now, once we're through preaching, then you get your food, right? So I rarely would go over there unless I was really, really hungry because that was so difficult. And if you were late and you didn't get to preaching, you wouldn't go. Well, I got pushed out of a moving car and I was in the hospital. And I got out of the hospital. I slept in a condominium and I went back. I was like, well, I'm going to go over here and get food because I can't go to the hood because I can't work, right? So I get there and I sleep outside waiting for the people to get in line because when they get in line, I'll hear the preaching. I'll get my food. I can clean up in the bathroom, right? Because I'm still needing to nurse my wounds. I got road rash all over me. So when I got left out of the hospital, they let me go in paper clothes because I had blood all over my clothes and I didn't have my shoes when the ambulance picked me up. And so they gave me paper shoes and I had paper clothes. And so now the road rash is like, my paper clothes are like dried on my sores that are healing from the road rash. And so I get there and the guy tells me no food, no shoes, no shirt, no service. I was like, wait a minute, aren't y'all those Christian folks? Y'all got some shoes around here? Ma'am, you're going to need to leave and vacate the premises or I'm going to call the police for trespassing. Try again tomorrow with shoes. Huh. So I had a very distorted idea and view of God. The last thing I wanted was something to do with this God that was so condemning and judgmental and harsh and calloused, right? Nobody told me of the guy that was homeless. That intentionally went out of his way to engage with the hurting people of his time that the mainstream society had shunned and discarded. That he loved me so much that he intentionally came here to die so that I would have a chance at life, even though he knew I'd be all jacked up. I don't know about y'all, but that's beautiful. Right? I never heard that story, right? I never heard that. So I used to sit on these steps and I'm like, okay, my corner, there were 3 churches and I would sit at these steps and I would sit at these steps and I'd pray, God, if you exist, if you're real, let me die. I bet there's a lot of you that have been there. Because that was the only way I could grasp that it would end. I felt my friends had found their out when they were murdered. Right? People like us don't make it out of lives like this. Right? I prayed and 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 finally I came to a resolve that was far darker than praying for death, and that was, I must be so awful, I'm not worthy of such a mercy. And I want you to know that that's a much, much, much worse place to be. And it was broad daylight, and I'll never forget this little red truck picked me up. I jumped in, and we went to park to do our business, and he gave me some money. And when he came around to the side of the truck, he pulled me out, and he beat me like I was a grown man. And I had been through a lot of beatings. I've been held at gunpoint to dig my own shallow grave. I have been through some stuff. I ain't never been beat like this man beat me. And then he took a gun and he told me to get on my knees and he told me how invaluable I was and how unworthy I was of life. And he told me to beg for my life and give him a reason to live, to let me live. Oh, I couldn't do it. I was like, thank you, Jesus. It's over. Just pull the trigger. Well, what I didn't understand then is that makes people like that kind of mad because I didn't have fear. And that's what they thrive on. So he decided he was going to violate me all over again. And this is truly where I know that God began. Although I know he was with me, of course we all can look back hindsight and see lots of things that we should have never survived that we did. And we know that God must have been the reason because we shouldn't have made it out, right? I had an opportunity to get the gun. And I told that man to get on his knees. And I told him to give me a reason to let him live. And I had enough hate and rage and anger in me to pull that trigger. He told me about his wife and his kids, his job, his family, and how valuable he was. And he cried like a baby. And I thought about every vile thing throughout my life, disgusting thing I had done, and things that had been done to me. And I had it in me to take that life. I had every intention. And I know that it was God that moved my hand, and I emptied the gun in the ground instead of in him. I threw that gun, and I wiped the blood from my face, and it started a sequence of events that would lead me out of the life. I had been in and out of prison. I mean, I did 3.5 years, and my first hygiene pass, I went to the dope house and came back and got high in the halfway house. Went straight back to prison because I was a slow learner. and you know what? I'm thankful for every single thing that I went through, right? I am thankful for every miserable thing that I went through. So that's funny. So now my sequence of events that leads me off the life, I'm in the halfway house, and this is what I knew. I knew if I contacted anybody from that life, I knew if I went anywhere near that neighborhood, I knew an evil in me resided that there would be no return from, because I knew I had the capability to kill somebody. And I didn't want that. Right? I knew once that monster in me was unleashed, there would be no redemption. So I'm in the halfway house and meet a guy because I think I'm looking good, I'm clean, I'm going to meetings, and now I'm in outpatient treatment, and I got to get a job, but I can't read or write, and I've never had a job. I'm 36 years old. So I'm picking up job applications, and I'm taking them to the halfway house, and my bunkies filled them out for me, and I'm taking them back the next day. Finally, this guy gives me a job interview, and he's like, hey, there's no work history. Were you a homemaker or something? Well, something like that. It's complicated. Right? But I'm illiterate, and I'm just winging. I get a job at McDonald's. It was great. He said, well, sweetie, if that smile is real, you got yourself a job. Okay. Take what I can get, right? Flipping burgers at McDonald's. And I'm telling you, left to my own demise, I'd probably still be working at McDonald's. Because I couldn't see anything better for me than that. But God had a much bigger plan for me. One that I would have never envisioned. Right? I met a guy, I fell in love. I was so excited. Met him in the halfway house. Right? He had a job. Woo. Moving on up. So he got out, got his own place. I'm like, yeah, we hooking up. So I worked at McDonald's. He worked a construction job. We're both in recovery. It's awesome. His drug of choice was not my drug of choice. He had not been the bottoms I had, and he really didn't know really where I'd come from. And that's okay. I'm good with that, right? So we fall in love, and I get pregnant. Oh, my goodness, I'm going to have a baby. This is so exciting because guess what? In my own sickness thinking, I'm thinking this is going to fix that baby I had left behind all those years ago, right? And in my last trimester, there were complications. And in 3 days, my eyes were inflamed and my brain was inflamed. And the doctor said, we've got medication that can stop this. In 3 days, I was completely blind. But it's going to take the life of your unborn child. My baby's daddy wanted me to have another baby. We can have another child. And I said, I can't make that choice. Now, God had been working on me, but I hadn't quite met him yet. Right? And I said, we'll wait. I gave birth, and the baby had a lot of problems, even though I'd been clean, right? Doctor said, it's too late. We can't save your eyes. Now I got a special needs baby, and I can't take care of her. Guess what? I ain't never been blind before. Baby daddy, met him in a halfway house. He's making minimum wage. We got nothing. Now I'm not going back to work at McDonald's, right? So I placed her up for adoption, amazing open adoption, one of the best choices I could have ever done for her or me. But in my heartache, still broken, because God's still working on me, but he ain't met me yet. Well, he's met me, but I ain't, acknowledged him, right? He's, showing up, Because I believe he's the one that gave me the ability in my spirit to not even question, I can't take a life. Right? And so then here I am. The only way my broken heart could be mended was, I'm going to have another baby. I didn't sound smart. So now I'm blind. And I feel like the only way we're going to try this again. And so we have another baby. That's my Ricky. I'm a single mom. Y'all, people that fuss about parenting and you think it's a challenge, try it blind. I promise you, do it blindfolded just for a day. You'll love parenting. Afterwards, it'll give you a whole new sense of, this is a piece of cake. And so I had my little guy, and when he was 5 weeks old, his first day of daycare was me going to the hospital to have my eyes medically removed. So these are prosthetics. They come out. It's great. I am great at a Halloween party, right? Hey, she can take her eyeballs out. I have an 11-year-old boy, and he's like, Mom, just do it. Just do it. So I'm the coolest mom on the block, right? Right? Or I'm single because, my baby's dad, when the eyeballs came out, he's like, okay, look, love. I did not sign up for this. See ya. So he kicked rocks, right? So when I date, and I just have to be really honest, I might have a strong personality, right? And so, guys, we might not be hitting it off so much. I can take out my eyes. They'll never call me again. I don't have to worry about stalkers. It's over, right? It's awesome. Okay. Anyway, so now I've had my baby. So this is what happens. Baby's daddy tells me I'm leaving, right? So now we move. We get a place. We finally get our own place because we've been living in this little hotel room where we're sharing a bathroom with 3 other hotel rooms. One of them kind of hotels, right? Right? And we've been living here for a couple years. And I'm still clean and I'm so happy, right? And he's now drinking and he says, it's because, your blindness was too much for me. Right? Wait a minute, I'm the one who had her eyeballs taken out. You kidding me? I'll never forget telling the doctor, he's like, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. And I took a really deep breath and I said, Doc, I think we have a problem. And he's like, yes, is there anything I can do? Well, I'm scared of the dark. And it's true. I used to always stand under streetlights, because, I was a prostitute. You're vulnerable if you got in a dark alley or something, right, on your own, right? I was a drug addict, man. So it was just really, God's funny, right, because he used it as a tool to grow me. So now we moved. We got our first house, and it's 1 block from the street where I worked for 17 years, 1 block. So now I'm feeling all vulnerable. I'm newly blind, and baby daddy said, I'm leaving. Gotta go. I'm alone with my baby for the first time. And God is I'm just telling you guys, you might not see him at work, but he's doing all these little things in the background for us. We just have to hold on. So I'm having this moment. How am I going to take care of this baby? What am I going to do when he wakes up? How am I going to do this? I'm blind. I can't get food stamps. I can't get into public housing. Nobody's going to hire me. And I'm making $6 a day in this sheltered workshop with people with developmental disabilities. And I'm illiterate. I can't be homeless with a baby. I've come too far. I can't have my child in foster care. Been there, done that. What's going to happen? And as God revealed himself, and I'll never forget, as I saw visions in my mind, just as if they were plain as day, and I saw these different situations as I was watching a movie of these things that were happening to me, and I realized God was with me every time, and that is why I survived. Right? He kept me. And then I saw this room with all these people, and I saw me laughing. I'm like, ooh. Because I just want y'all to know, laughing wasn't my style. I run into people today, it's like, whoa, Ellie. Wow, you smile? Yeah, I do today. I got a heart transformation. I have joy today. Right? That I couldn't have gotten on my own. So, as I'm having this moment, and I'm seeing these people, and I'm seeing me happy, and I'm seeing my nemesis, my arch enemy on the streets, right? We always went toe-to-toe every time we saw each other. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and we're being nice to each other. This is craziness, right? So then I'm sitting down, and I'm shaking, and I'm trembling. And as I sit down, I hear a knock on my door. Now, we just moved here to the neighborhood, right? I hear this knock on my door. And I'm ignoring it because I'm having this moment. And I'm really trying to process. And I keep hearing this knock on the door. And then I hear, hey, my name is Chris. We're from the church down the street. And then I realized we'd only been there for like a week, so we hadn't hung curtains and stuff up everywhere yet. So she's like, I see you in there. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to have to answer the door now. So I open the door, and she's like, well, we wanted to come meet our new neighbors. We saw the for rent sign down, and we're from the church down the street. And I started asking what church. So the very church that I prayed for death became the very church that I gave my life to Christ. Right? Was that not God? Right? Talk about full circle, right? It's kind of craziness, right? Now you tell me God isn't working behind the scenes, right? You tell me God isn't working behind the scenes. And so I'll never forget as I got into the church and I finally got baptized and I came up out of the baptismal waters and I said, can I join the outreach team now? And she's like, well, you didn't have to get baptized to join the outreach team. And so we started a street outreach and it was really funny. I go to the first outreach meeting and so we're going to go reach out to the Catholics. Because in the Northeast community, it's a lot of Hispanic and Catholic folks. And so we're going to go reach them. We're going to bring them to Christ. And I was like, I don't speak Spanish. Are there going to be any classes? And everybody got real quiet. And I said, hello. And so the director said, huh. Yeah, I don't either. I was like, I'm not real smart about a whole lot of things, but I'm thinking I foresee some challenges. So then I started talking about the prostitutes that would get money and with every intent to go eat, but go straight to the dope house. Because that's how the disease of addiction works. And I talked about the men that waited for the girls to come back so they could get their high on. Because that's how our disease works. So we started taking outreach out. It was really great, really awesome, and God is just amazing. So then I ran into all these barriers, trying to get a job. I started getting into, it was really funny. I was like, nobody's ever going to use me because everybody's only going to see me as a crackhead prostitute, right? And so I was like, God, I'm clean. I love you. Would you bless me by using me? I want you to use me. I want to be used by you. You saved me when man judged me, right? A couple weeks later, I get a phone call from the Kansas City Crime Commission. I'm like, yeah. This is Christine McDonald. Hey, so we're working on some policy down in Jeff City, and we think you would be perfect. Would you like to come take some classes on advocacy? We'll pay for them. I'm like, are you sure you have the right person? Yeah, we're sure. So I got into advocacy. I started working. 8 years, we lifted the lifetime food stamp ban for drug felons. So any convicted drug felons that can now get food stamps, it's because of that legislation that I worked 8 years for, right? Right? So then I started fighting HUD. Okay, so let's go to the big dogs, because you know what? If you have a drug offense, you can't get into public housing. Well, that's not okay. Well, guess what? It ain't like that no more. It ain't like that no more. Because God used me, and I made myself available. I begged him to use me, right? I begged him. I will listen. I will go. And he started bringing people in my path and into my life. And then I'll never forget, the Crime Commission a couple years later, they're like, hey, would you come to this banquet? So I show up at this banquet. We got all these, like, the beer and all these fancy people, right? And they're like, I got honored. Okay, so 103 arrests, 7 trips to prison, 9 felony convictions, and I get honored by the Kansas City Crime Commission, right? Because I'm breaking down the barriers so people like us can have a fair shot of making it when we try. Amen. Right? So then, because God's kind of cool, so now I'm still trying to get a job. I'm making $6 a day, so I'm breaking down some barriers, and I'm like, they're not wanting to help me, so I try to take Braille classes. I got kicked out of Braille class. I told the lady I think I smoked too much crack because my fingers don't have the same sensitivity. I told her I didn't care how many times I tried. I was not feeling the dots that she was feeling, and we just weren't on the same page. She had me escorted out. I never went back to Braille class. But I had somebody take an interest in me. I'll never forget. They said, you know, I got this program. It can help you learn how to type. And if you can learn how to type, you can start learning how to read. Right? So as a blind person, I went from completely illiterate and only able to write my name to a GED and a college degree. Right? I didn't do that. I did it because I told God to use me. He gave me the strength and determination. He lit that fire in my heart to give me the determination because it wasn't easy. Right? I made myself available to him because man judged me and he didn't. He forgave me. He died for me because he loved me. And I have had a whole lot of human beings that pass judgment on me. So God's really funny. So then I get a job, and now I'm the program director. I work for the Missouri Baptist Association, so I run an organization in the very same community on the very streets with the very same women I was on the streets with, a long-term therapeutic faith-based recovery program for women to leave lives of prostitution. And I've authored 2 books. I would have still been working at McDonald's, right? God has a plan for us, and when we say use us, none of our mess and none of our hurt goes unknown by him, right? And he can use us for great things I could have never envisioned. I own a home on a lake, right? I don't dig in trash cans. I don't urinate outside, and I don't have to steal food today, right? And guess what? I'm not an exception to the rule. He's just waiting. He says, come as you are in all of your brokenness. Right? I used to think you had to get fixed to get Jesus. Because that's how the church tends to make you feel. But he says, come as you are. I will wipe your tears. You get a fresh start. And if he created everything, who cares what man thinks? Right? Right? Look, I'm not an exception to the rule. I got joy. I'll never forget after I got saved and I was having a conversation with a lady and I was like, we were talking and I said something. I covered my mouth. I said, oh my goodness, that sure was nice of me. Did I say that? Right? It didn't happen overnight. But I had to every day surrender to him. And sometimes several times throughout the day. And sometimes on my knees, I would get up on my hands on my hips and hand up into the sky and say, really, Jesus, are you sure about this? He is. He won't take you where he has not prepared a place for you. He won't lead you to where he won't bring you through. Right? Right? And I am not an exception to the rule. He's got a plan for each and every one of us. We just have to make ourselves available. And we just have to walk in faith. My blindness was one of the most amazing things that could have ever happened to me. And you know, I've had people say, oh, were you mad at God when he made you blind? I was like, well, I've been reading that Bible. I just don't think he did me like that. My blindness was one of the most amazing things that could happen. Did it suck? Oh, yeah. Is it a nuisance? Absolutely. I have this talking color detector, so I touch on my clothes with it, and he's got this real hot British accent. And so every morning I get this guy with this amazing British accent to help me match my clothes. It's awesome. Right? Look, faith is believing in things we can't see, feel, or touch. I couldn't trust anybody. Right? And when I lost my sight, I had to trust strangers just to get me to the bathroom, right? I learned all about walking in faith and putting my trust in Jesus. Because every step that I take, I don't know if there'll be ground beneath my feet when I take a step. Every time I travel into a new town, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go to New York City by myself? Jesus, are you sure about this? Okay, I'll go. Because you prepared a place for me. I believe that. Right? We can live every day like that. Right? Every day we can be inspired. I tell people all the time, and since we are more similar folks than those professionals that sometimes I talk to, and I tell them that they have the chance to breathe hope into people like us, right? Take away our power. I'll never forget my PO who said, oh, looks like the most you've been out of prison in the last few years was 21 days. Let's see how quick I can send you back. You know what I would do in my start? I'll show you. I'm going to come smoke crack in your parking lot tonight. Catch me if you can. Because I'm showing him as they roll me off in cuffs. Right? We think like that, right? Because we ain't got no sense. That's why I have to surrender my life to Christ every day. Because my best thinking keeps me there. And he's got a much bigger plan for me. Something I could have never envisioned for myself. My daughter that I abandoned at that hospital, I was at an event with these Episcopalian folks. They're funny folks. You know, you have to tell them when to laugh. I was like, okay, that was funny. And they kind of, I was like, no, really, you can laugh. It was funny. They're kind of stuffy. But I was doing a mic check, and a woman came up to me, and she says, my name is so-and-so. I was like, okay, right now's not a good time. If you could catch me when I'm done, yeah, I'd love to talk to you. And then I heard another voice, and she says, and my name is Margaret. They call me Maggie, and I am the baby you named Jasmine that you had at Truman Medical Center, right? Because God restores all. Sometimes in little pieces, sometimes in big pieces. But the one thing that I've learned, there's kind of a formula. Number one, God's math ain't my math. Thank you, Jesus. And you have to be ready. If he can't trust you with the little stuff, he's not going to trust you with the big stuff. Right? And you have to make yourself available. He tells you to go, then you don't wonder how or why. You just know he's prepared it. And ask him to guide your life. Right? Because he's got a plan for each and every one of us. And it's beyond anything we could have imagined. Right? I've got to hang out with some really cool people on this journey. And it's like, I was like, excuse me, I have to pinch myself right now. Just to make sure that it's like, okay, this is exciting stuff. And it's stuff I would have never envisioned for myself in my wildest dreams. And I am not an exception to the rule. Each and every single one of you are special to him. You just have to surrender and allow him to guide you. Right? Okay, so all of this to say, I am so thankful for Jesus. I'm so glad he says, come as you are in all your brokenness. And I hate those people that give us the message to make us think we got to get fixed to get Jesus, because you don't. Right? You don't have to be fixed to get Jesus. Come as you are, because he loves you. He knew every hair on your head. He knew you in your mother's womb, and he knew all the mistakes you would make on that journey. And guess what? You're still here. He chose to create you anyway. Right? He don't make mistakes. Right? Right? So we're all special. Each and every one of you are special and amazing in his eyes. Right? And he's just waiting. I'm not going to do an altar call because, we're Baptist, and so I'm a female. We can't do that. I'll say that for James because I know he doesn't shut out any church service without. But I have a video. So I can talk this all day long because I'm kind of cleaned up today. But we have a video, and I'm going to share it with you. You can see it's just a little hint of the amazing things that God has done, because he forgave me, and he redeemed me, and I allowed him to restore me. Thank you. Amen. Where am I looking? Where's the video? Over here? Where's the music? Oh. I'm watch it with you. Of course Phil did. I'm just kidding, Phil. I'll still eat your barbecue. Are we watching other pictures? No. Oh, okay. I was like, am I missing it? Okay. Third time a charm. 1, 2,